Welcome to the UpLevel Podcast, Tasha Blank.
Thanks for having me.
So the listeners have heard some of the really incredible, cool things that you're up to. And I told them a little bit about why I wanted you here in this season. So let's dive right into how you would define or articulate this concept of right relationship that we're exploring this season.
Mm-hmm. It's it's such a funny question for me because I was just telling you before we started recording that I can look at this from so many different angles, and life doesn't exist outside of relationship. Reality doesn't exist outside of relationship. There's nothing that isn't in relationship to something else. That's how I think our world came to be. So I think for us as humans, our biggest question is, what is our right relationship to what is non-human? Because it feels to me like we're living in a story or a culture that tells a story of us, it tells a story of our relationship to our world. Mm-hmm. That is a story of dominion. Mm-hmm. Over nature, over our bodies, over each other. And there's this sense that, we've been imbued with this ability to get dominion over all of these things. And of course, we're flawed, so we're bound to fuck it up. I don't know if cursing's allowed.
Cursing's always allowed. Definitely. Bring it.
But if we can just get it right, if we can just get control, if we can just come up with the right pharmaceutical, the right technology, the right, whatever to get it all under control, including the destruction that we've caused, then everything will be okay. And this is top of mind right now because I've been reading a book called Ishmael, which I highly recommend to those who haven't heard of it. I had never heard of it until a friend of mine thrust it into my hands. And there's this idea, like the idea of this book, and I connect with it so much because it's so much about why I dance and why I create dance spaces. The idea that our actual healing, our actual wholeness, our actual resolution as humans is in the undoing of that story. Mm-hmm. And coming into a different relationship with everything that's not us. And I'll include the body in that, because us, me, so much of how we define that in this culture is our mind, is our ego, is our identity, is the story we tell about ourselves, about who we are and what we're here to do. And so much of the power of music and the power of the dance is to give that mind something to rest on. You could say the same thing about meditation, but I think dance is more potent medicine for these times in the extreme state that we're in physiologically, and neurologically. It literally gives that mind something to put itself into that is it's like a vehicle that brings us back into another state of consciousness, another way of relating with nature, with the body, that is about listening, that is about curiosity, that is about being willing to be wrong, being willing to have all these stories that we're telling, like, be dismantled. and all the things that we've been holding on to and ruminating on and angry about and desiring, like for all of that to dissolve into a wider, larger state of consciousness, kind of intelligence that is nature. And so, yeah, I would say that's the bigger, we can look at this in so many different ways as far as what level of relationship you want to look at. But I think that one for me is the most interesting.
It's fascinating. And so I knew you'd be a good conversation partner on this. How did dance find you, or how did you find dance?
That's a great way of stating that question. So I was dancing pretty much as soon as I could walk, according to my parents. It was just, I was just a really physical kid. I was not as verbal. I mean, I spoke fine. I didn't have any like real struggles verbally, but it just wasn't so much my thing. Like movement was my thing. I remember that feeling and the way of being of having this very physical relationship with my surroundings and relating to nature with my body and crawling on things and climbing on things and smelling things and picking things and having adventures and climbing trees. Like I was very, very much in the body all the time. And then, of course, life and trauma and conditioning and all the things kind of took that away. And I forgot. I completely forgot. And I had a number of eating disorders, and my body became something that I was desperate to control. And I was so in my head. And it made me pretty sick. And there were a few different it was not a linear thing, kind of went up and down over several years. And it was, there were a few rock bottom moments. And one of those rock bottoms happened when I was 20. And that really, I had a complete health breakdown, health crisis, and mental health as well. But really, my body really, really spoke really loudly and basically bitch slapped me and let me know that the way I was relating to being alive was not going to work. And I got the message, and listened and started changing things and became open to, it was one of those things where it was like, okay, I actually am going to need to be willing to change everything. And that put me in a position to say yes to a whole new ways of thinking, whole new choices with what I was studying. It became really clear to me that Western medicine did not have the answers. I was involved in the health crisis was a lot of disillusionment about doctors and medications and their limitations. I mean, when they're great, they're great, and a lot of times they really aren't the answer. And in my case, many of them made me worse. So I took the mantle of and the responsibility for healing myself and became aware that that was something that I could and needed to do, and that it was something that I couldn't outsource, and that it had something to teach me, that this was actually going to be a really important part of my learning. And within a year, I was dancing at Burning Man. and through dancing in festival culture, in these much more open, expressive kinds of spaces, I got to reclaim that awareness that I'd had as a kid, that joy I had as a kid, that like direct relationship with the present moment that I had had. And I didn't mention this, but in my sort of preteen and teen years, I was a pre-professional classical dancer. And so I was very much in the like, gotta get the choreography right, gotta be perfect. Definitely did not help with the eating disorders and body image issues. Was staring at myself for 3 hours a day in a mirror under fluorescent lights in pink tights. Not a recipe for healing, I would say, for most. And so this way of dancing that I found when I was like around 21 felt like quite the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
It was not about anybody else. It was not about looking like anything. It was about allowing the universe to move through me. And it was really quite a life-changing moment and set me on the path that I'm still on. It's not been a straight path, but I'm still on it.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it was, still rocky for a couple of years after that. It took me, let's see, another 2 years to step onto a conscious dance floor, which was 5 rhythms.
Okay.
Before that, I was doing it all through the club and the party scene and the Burning Man scene and that sort of late night substance imbued culture. And yeah, 2009 is when I found 5 rhythms and really felt like I had come home to a place where I could work out what this dance thing was really about. I could really make it a laboratory for exploring what was here, what wanted to come through, and what the dance had to teach me.
And look at all you've created since then. Okay, there's so much in this that I want to pull out. I think your story is one of restoring right relationship
Mm.
to self. And that's been a big theme this year is there's the relationships with others, there's the relationship with the ecosystems we're a part of, and we're getting really clear that it starts with the relationship with self. And your story is just a beautiful example of that awakening, that awareness of, oh, I've got to shift things. And then I hear like deep trust in listening to a path that maybe was not put in front of you, like one that was conditioned. It was very much, like you said, organic. It wasn't linear. And I think this is what leaders nowadays are craving, but still in the confines of the systems that we're a part of. But this ability to flow and listen and create and dance as medicine, movement as medicine. I'm hoping you can give us a few bars on how dance and movement are a medicine for these times to help not just like all of us find more right relationship.
Mm-hmm. Well, we know studies have now officially confirmed what we've known for hundreds of thousands of years, which is that dance is the most effective treatment for depression.
Hey, listen up, people. The most effective treatment for depression, dance.
Yeah, like it's been proven in studies not just to be more effective than SSRIs and placebos, but every other method, including exercise in general.
Mm.
So there's something about dance that is different from just moving your body or running or lifting weights. I love all of those things, but it is a technology that rewires our nervous system completely. So it works on a lot of different levels. The first thing that happens if you're dancing to music is that a beat comes on and your brain gets to entrain to that beat.
Mm.
And in training to something that is rhythmic and steady and predictable, especially as I teach many of my students in my DJ courses, song structure, especially dance music structure, is much more predictable than people realize.
Yeah.
There's so many people who are intimidated by the idea of becoming a DJ or even a producer and making music. I'm like, y'all, it's actually very easy to understand. And part of the simplicity of it is the beauty and is why it works, because our brains get to be in this environment where, whether we're conscious of it or not, there's something predictable happening that we get to attune to, that we get to lock into, that we get to receive. And that predictability creates a kind of safety that we then get to drop a level of our minds into and drop that much deeper into our bodies. And when we drop into our bodies, into sensation, into literally feeling the feeling of our feet on the floor, the air on our skin, the sweat on our skin, every single part of our body gets invited into what is called proprioception,
Mm.
which is the experience of your sensations sensing themselves. It's like your body sensing itself in space. When you move your body and you're dancing, you're opening up almost every cell to proprioception. And proprioception is inherently stabilizing and regulating for the nervous system. And then a lot of times when we're dancing, we're doing this bilateral movement. We're stepping left to right, left to right. We can fall into these really simplistic patterns, and that also is highly, highly regulating. Then there's all kinds of things that happen in music itself that increases dopamine, that just, yeah, it's like a flood of neurotransmitters. If you're dancing with other people, you're rewiring your nervous systems together and creating a safe space together with other people, which releases oxytocin. It's like this huge bath of bliss chemicals that gets activated when we dance, whether we're dancing alone or with other people. But with other people, it actually can, depending on who you are, it has the potential to be like that much more powerful because it's compounded. Everything we're doing is compounded by being in community and moving rhythmically in community together does something to our brain that doesn't happen any other time. It's like birds. When birds are flying together or schools of fish are swimming together, something in them is activated in which they're acutely aware of their existence as being part of something bigger than themselves. And when we can tap into that as humans, as individual humans, when we can tap into, oh my gosh, I'm literally physically part of this larger movement. It satisfies something very, very, very deep inside of us that we don't get a lot of in this hyper individualistic culture.
Yeah.
And it's something that's a deep part of who we are and how we're designed to live. But yeah, dancing together is one of the only ways. There's also, if you go to church where there's a lot of singing,
Mm-hmm.
that'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
Marathon runners,
Mm-hmm.
these kinds of highly charged group experiences where you're all in it together and you're actively calling on some level of higher power.
Yeah.
This is something that we've been doing since the dawn of humanity. It used to be woven into all cultures as a known part of healing, necessary part of healing.
And it's a big part of what's been missing. And I think it's why we chose to explore right relationship. And what you're speaking to is this where we came from and connecting to something bigger than ourselves. Like these types of experiences allow us to have the connection to the past and to the connection beyond. And it really does feel like a remedy for these times. It's something that's so missing. And I loved hearing the different science behind what's happening in the body. I think this is really important. As you were talking, I was having a vision of every workplace when everyone's coming in or signing online, that there's someone like you, Tasha, leading a group dance, getting everybody rhythmically attuned. And not everybody has to like move their body. That's one of the things that's beautiful about your work is you create such safety for different bodies and different ways of expression. And the importance of holding that we have these bodies that are sitting maybe all day at work, and they need to be liberated so that the work can flow, that we can collaborate more effectively, that we can be in right relationship with all the things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And it's also needed because, like I said before, meditation is one of these things. That seated meditation is something that I think, is also really important for these times. And it's really challenging to meet the busyness of the pace of our culture as it is now
Yeah.
and drop into stillness for a lot of people, especially people who have a lot of trauma.
Yeah.
And so meeting it in an active, physical way can be much more regulating for whom meditation is actually dysregulating.
Hear this, people. Maybe meditation hasn't been your thing, but what about having a little dance party throughout the day? Just a couple of minutes, get up, put on a tune, move the body.
Yeah. And if you're doing it with intention, it is the same thing. It is going to activate sort of different brainwave patterns ultimately, but there will be more excitement in your brainwaves as you're dancing. But it's a very similar practice when you're dancing with intention of letting go of your thoughts, of surrendering to the body, of surrendering and paying attention to the beat and your sensation. So you're not just paying attention to your breath, as a lot of seated meditation asks, or a mantra, but you've got the immersive sound of a beat as your sort of prayer beads to hold on to. And then you've got all the different sensations that are continually drawing you back into presence.
So powerful. And so many of us have forgotten, and it's available. It's
Yeah.
accessible.
Yeah.
It's like, so that's part of the prayer I know we're putting out there, and why we wanted you to come and share this knowledge with us, because it is accessible to folks to just take a minute and move.
Yeah. And it'll blow your mind every time. It blows my mind every time. I still, 15 years later, I still can't believe it when I get onto the dance floor and I watch what happens inside of my mind and inside of my body. The level of shift that's able to happen, the level of digestion of life, my ability to process things that have been really difficult to process, to release emotions, to unlock emotions I didn't know were there and let them move so that I'm not carrying them anymore. The ability to clear out space. It's like a house cleaning, like clearing out the
Yeah.
pipes. And then once that happens, then inspiration comes and I start getting ideas and I start like, oh, that's how to write that thing, or, oh, that's how we're going to formulate or format that. And, oh, that's the post I want to do. It all just comes
Yeah.
without me having to effort or struggle because I've simply allowed myself to get out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to, it's simple, but it's not easy.
Yeah.
Getting yourself onto the dance floor,
Mm.
like putting yourself in a regular practice of movement takes discipline.
Definitely.
It can involve overcoming a lot of resistance, a lot of stagnation, but I have so much more work to do, but I'm so tired. There's so many buts
Mm-hmm.
and so many parts of us that want to stay stuck in that stickiness. But once you practice working that muscle of, okay, no, I'm going to go, I'm going to put my headphones on, I'm going to go to that class, whatever it is that gets you moving,
Mm-hmm.
the easier it gets, the more it becomes a habit.
Talk to us a little bit about shadow work. I know this is an area of focus for you as well. So for folks listening, like, how do you define it? And in this process, it's like people's shadows may come up, like you talked about the resistance and
Totally.
yeah.
Well, and in the dance too, because the shadow is basically what's been in the dark. right? It's what we haven't been looking at. It's any part of ourself that's been abandoned or numbed or forgotten or disallowed or banished. It's Jung is such an amazing teacher when it comes to the shadow. I think he's one of the greats, and he said that our shadow is not just about our darkness; it's also about the light we've disowned.
Mm.
So it can be amazing, like it can be parts of ourselves that we think we want, but don't allow ourselves to have. And the thing about the shadow is that it's another young quote. It's like, if you don't make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate. So I think one of the shadows of our culture is this story that we as humans are here to be in control. Because nobody talks about it, really.
Yeah.
It's just in the air. It's just in the water. It's just everywhere. Everything is imbued with it, but we're operating on top of it and over it. So once you start to make that conscious, then you start to be able to work with it and make choices. And the body holds everything. The body holds it all. I've heard the body referred to as the unconscious, which is where the shadow is stored. For those who aren't familiar with this concept of the conscious, is what we're aware of. That's the light. That's like what we can see. It's what I think I want. It's why I think I'm mad at that person. It's, who I know myself to be. And then the shadow, which is in the unconscious, is all that stuff that's underneath, that's often driving our actions and our choices and our behavior and our feelings about ourselves. And it makes a lot of sense to me that the body would be the house of our unconscious, or the seat of our unconscious. Because when you start to move the body, you start to stir up all the shit that you have not been aware of. And all these things start to come to the surface, and emotions move. Like I was saying before, the things that I didn't even know were there start to move, and they start to wake up. And what I think makes for a really, truly transformational dance floor, well, it's a lot of things, but I think that transformational dance floors, one of the things they're doing is inviting people, creating the conditions for people to go into those places, to feel safe and free enough and in their power enough to touch the things that have been untouchable, and to feel and to work with what's been hidden, and to move it and to allow it to move. Because the truth is, most of it doesn't need to be analyzed or processed endlessly.
Yeah.
Most of it, just like when we were little babies and, something upset us, we cried and then we were done crying.
Yeah, we had a tantrum, we shake it out, and then we're finished.
And then it's done.
Yeah.
Like any feeling felt fully lasts about 90 seconds max.
Yeah.
But when we start attaching stories to it and beliefs, and, that's when we start perpetuating it. And when we resist it and we shove it down into our gut, into our liver, into our hip, into our back, our shoulder, our neck, all the places that we, that hurt.
Yeah.
That's when it keeps going, and we get stuck in these cycles. So accessing it through the body is this incredible way to just let the nature of our emotions do its thing and move and heal itself.
So Tasha, if you're speaking to people managers inside an organization, what's some guidance you'd bring them around where we're exploring today?
One of the things I think is so important to keep in mind, and that I keep learning over and over, both on the dance floor and in my business, is that all of this stuff is present all the time. all of the repressed emotion, all of the, ways we inhibit ourselves, on the dance floor, you have this opportunity to really dig in and move it and discover all of the parts that want to come through and move and be expressed. And you see so much power and sexiness and ferocity and just gorgeous expressions of grief, like all of it. It's all allowed. And all of that is there in your board meeting.
Yeah.
It's just under the surface.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so, like, what's your guidance for leaders to start working with this in a way that, meets the environment they're in and supports it to move forward?
Yeah. Of course, the specifics depend on the kind of organization you have and the kind of culture you have and want to foster. But what I can say for sure is that if there is permission for people to make mistakes, try things out, and not have it work out, if there's permission for emotions to be present, if there's permission to move, if there's permission to not be perfect, there's going to be a whole lot less holding in, which means there's going to be a whole lot more creativity and a whole lot more potential for momentum and moving forward. And it's the exchange of creative ideas. If everybody is afraid of getting in trouble, they're not going to communicate well. They're not going to perform well. They're certainly not going to give you probably really important information that you need if they're afraid of, the repercussions. So creating environments that are open, where there's open channels of communication for things to be communicated, is so key. Because again, that's just creating the opportunity for movement.
Mhm.
Even if it's not like, okay, everybody, we're going to put on a song and shake out our bodies.
Right?
You're creating channels for things to be expressed. And whenever there's motion, there is progress.
Listen to that, folks. That was some good wisdom drop there, Tasha. Wherever there is movement, there is progress.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to look like, we're busting out the DJ decks and we're having a dance party at work, or it could. I want to challenge folks that are leading people to consider things like that. And we know there's examples of that. There are people doing that.
Oh, yeah. That is definitely the quickest way to get people's creativity sparked, to get them out of their head. If you're in a meeting that feels really stagnant, if you're having conflict on your team, if you get them moving together, it'll change everything. Everything so quickly. That's why I do this, is because it's so efficient.
Yeah.
It's the quickest way I know to actually physiologically shift a huge room of people in a short amount of time.
Tell us how you got into DJing. How did the dance then evolve into your incredible DJing and being a beautiful teacher of it to so many?
Yeah, I definitely didn't want to become a DJ as far as I knew, consciously, let's say. So I knew I had to make my life about dance. That became really, really clear in those few years from where I had some rock bottoms and discovered dancing, and then discovered 5 rhythms, and really kind of had my life rescued by that practice. I started throwing dance parties because that was what I could figure out to do. I didn't know what else to do. I had just graduated an interdisciplinary program with a degree in critical theory and consciousness studies. And I was rudely awakened to the fact that that was not, as far as I knew, a viable career path.
Yeah.
And that there were not any job opportunities for someone of my degree. And what's hilarious is that ultimately I created the job for myself. I had no idea that I would do that. But when I look back on what I studied and sort of the journey I went on in academia, which was tracking at the same time as those health crises and awakenings and finding dance, and it was all woven in together. Everything I've done is actually quite, there's a lot of continuity. So I just, first opportunity I got was to throw a dance party in a bowling alley at 10 in the morning on a Saturday in the middle of a snowstorm, like December of 2009, I think it was. And, 5 people came, and it was something.
Mm.
It was not nothing. And from there, very, very organically and over time, I trialed and errored my way into creating some really cool dance parties. My first dance party series was called Get Your Dance On. And it was very sweet, and it was totally unsustainable. I never made a cent, and I was not DJing, and I was hiring a bunch of people. I was hiring DJs and live drummers, and it was really cool. It was epic. We had multiple rooms, and it was a total scene. And that was my introduction to building community and creating an offering that would really serve people. But after a couple of years of that, I really burnt out, because I was still, nannying and waitressing and kind of piecing things together to live in New York. And then I took a break, and it was my partner at the time. He had dabbled in DJing years prior, and he had some old equipment that he went to Guitar Center. He took it to Guitar Center and exchanged it for a DJ controller, like a newer DJ controller. And he brought it home and he gave it to me, and he said, "You need to learn how to use this." And it was super clear. He was not the first person to say that to me, but I could not hear it because I didn't see any examples of any DJs who looked like me. Back then it was now so many amazing female DJs.
Yeah.
And folks across the gender spectrum. But 15 years ago, it was dudes and models.
Yeah.
And models.
Yeah.
Which I wasn't. So I was like, I don't know how I fit here. Like, I don't know that there's room for me. And I didn't own any vinyls. So I had just written it off. It didn't even seem like a remote possibility. So whenever somebody said that to me, I was like, I don't know how to do that. That hilarious catch-22 when you're like, I want to do that thing, but I don't know how. So I guess I won't.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people know that.
Yeah, for sure.
Turns out the only way to learn to do something is to learn to do it. And so I surrendered to that uncomfortable process of sucking for a while. And it actually wasn't too long. It took me a lot less time than I imagined to get the hang of it, to get the basics, and to not suck. And pretty much immediately I started hosting kind of yoga dance hybrid classes where I'd work with a yoga teacher, and then I would facilitate dance and I would DJ the whole thing, and we'd do it in a yoga studio. And that was where it was kind of my training ground, where I got to study, okay, how is what I'm playing affecting these people's bodies? And I was very surprised many times, even though I had been dancing religiously for a couple of years at that point, maybe 3 years at that point, 3 or 4. I was surprised by how my song choices, what they did to the room, how they activated or didn't activate the dance floor. So I figured a lot of stuff out about how to actually activate a dance floor. And then maybe a year into DJing, I got the opportunity to try out a party, an evening party at CLO, bless their souls, which is one of the coolest clubs in New York for a very long time. Really amazing sound system. I liken it to having your learner's permit when you're learning to drive, and then somebody gives you a Ferrari. It really felt like that. I was like, all right, DJ. I was all right. And then I got put on this Function One sound system that at the time was the best in the United States.
Wow.
So
Good for you.
so that's the kind of situation that really makes you take things seriously.
Oh, yeah.
'Cause also everybody could hear everything I was doing,
Yeah.
and so I think that really got me to take my learning and my skill development very seriously,
Mhm.
and built that. It's called the Get Down. And we built that very organically over a couple of years. We started out monthly and then it went to twice a month. And for 7 years pre-pandemic, it was like sold out very regularly, became quite a New York institution.
Congratulations.
And then thanks.
Yeah.
And then the pandemic hit and, everything stopped and I went online and I started facilitating virtually. And there was no more cool club. There was no more big sound system. At that point, I was playing in a lot of different clubs. We were doing it at bigger clubs, and Seattle had closed, so we had to graduate. And started doing a lot of House of Yes, and all of that went away. And the DJ persona went away. And
Mhm.
again, I was already having some health issues at that point in like early winter of 2020 and hitting burnout. And my body, once again, was sending me some pretty strong messages about this isn't sustainable. You need to change. And so I got that on a level that I never could have anticipated. And yeah, through the practice of facilitating virtually and then dancing to the replays of my dances, I realized that I had a method and that I'd actually been doing that method for years at this point, and that probably that method was a big reason why the Get Down was so successful and so vibrant and so magical. And which is very exciting to me because until that point, I had no idea how to quote scale what I had been doing. I had no idea how to convey what I was doing with the music to anybody else. And within a month of discovering that method, I got my first student. She reached out to me, got introduced by a mutual friend, and she just unboxed her first controller and wanted to learn to DJ. And she said, "Teach me everything you know." And I said, "Okay, let's try." And it worked. And within 6 weeks, she played a festival that had a pretty incredible lineup. It was a 3-day festival, and she played on the last day. And after her set, 2 people came up to her and said, not only was that the best set we've heard all weekend, but that was the best that we've heard since we were dancing to Tasha Blank at the Get Down before the pandemic.
Wow.
Having zero idea that
The connection.
she knew
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the spark of like, all right, this is for real. This is really something. This isn't just something that I'm making up. It really works. And that was the birth of PhDJ.
Which is
my
awesome.
training program. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell people how they can find you and your work. And this will be in the show notes, but give us
Great.
Yeah.
TashaBlank.com, easy to remember. I think there's links to all the things there. And then including PhDJ, and the PhDJ website is phdj.dance. For those who really want to go deep on the DJ path, it's an 8-month intensive program. We have incredible coaches who've been trained in my method and just incredible leadership team.
They're amazing. I did the shorter version and it's brilliant. Your leadership is brilliant. The team's so supportive and there. I highly recommend it to folks.
Thank you. Yeah. So then we've got, for those who just want to dip their toe into learning the tech skills, they're like, let me figure out if I even want to push the buttons before I step into an 8-month training program. I just released a course called DJ Essentials that's self-paced. It's all video-based.
Awesome.
Really beautiful. It's all the tech skills you need to DJ brilliantly. It's all I use. I'm not a very fancy DJ. I don't use tricks really. I really stick to the essentials and I do them really well. And I think that's all you really need. It's not about I mean, for some DJs, it is. For some DJs, they are scratching. They're doing almost like DJ gymnastics,
Yeah.
you could call it, and you're there to see them do that
Yeah.
because it's so phenomenal what they're doing. But what I'm about is it's about the dance floor. It's about the dancers and their experience. It's not really about me. So how do we use the music to create the conditions for an absolutely immaculate, transcendental, transformational dance experience? So those are the skills that I teach
Yeah.
in
And
both.
it's so powerful. And a lot of the leadership development work that we offer, we're training leaders how to listen to the room. And we call it like level 3 listening. And then there's like level 4 leadership. And this is something you do so beautifully. And I think as a DJ, that's part of the work is really listening to the room. It's beyond listening to ourselves and to an individual, but like how is the arcs? What's happening in this space? And you as the person behind the deck and the mic are really contributing to people's, like you said, transformation.
Mm.
And this is to me the link back to leadership in the work that you're doing and the work that we're doing through UpLevel. And I'm hoping you can give us like a final prayer or wish, desire you have for our listeners, for humanity in through your lens of this work and right relationship.
Hmm.
Mhm.
What kind of prayer would you like?
Let's do something embodied.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm imagining that the people listening to this might be driving or something. So maybe let's keep it really simple
Yeah.
and have it be the kind of thing you could do with your eyes closed or open.
Great.
And whether your eyes are closed or open, tuning into where your awareness is in relationship to your body. Chances are it is concentrated somewhere around your head where your eyes and your ears are. And not needing to get rid of that or change it, just noticing there's an entire field of sensation below the neck. There's 100 trillion cells, all of which have the capacity to feel, from the shoulders to the chest to the rib cage and the spine and the seat. And wherever the body is making contact with the ground, whether that's the seat or the feet or both, maybe the back is being supported by a chair. And inviting that this seat of awareness, this alive, breathing, sensing, pulsing, buzzing body is a window into relationship with nature, with the earth, with information and signals that might be quieter than what comes in through our eyes and ears. But there's this whole field of information and awareness and aliveness that has answers, has intelligence, has secrets, are likely ready and willing to help, that know what to do. Just reminding that head that loves to take up all that space of our awareness, reminding it that it doesn't have to have all of the answers because we are hooked up to this giant web of wisdom. It has nothing to do with thinking. Just like the planets don't think about how to orbit each other. There's actually something bigger than all of us happening. And the more we can open to it, the more we can be supported by it. So giving thanks to all of our support, to this unconditionally generous earth, and to this life, this mysterious life that was here long before us and will be here long after we're gone. Just gratitude that we get to be part of it while we're here.
Mm. And so much gratitude, Tasha, for you and this wisdom that you're bringing us today. Thank you so much for that. There's one final question just from this place. That 21-year-old you, what would she say to you now?
What would she say to me now?
After seeing who you've become, what you've navigated, your journey of restoring right relationship through the cycles.
I don't think she would want a preview because the ride has not been easy. I think she would rather remain oblivious, but it's all been worth it. You know, I say that a lot. I get myself into things that are much more challenging than I ever imagined they would be. And had I known how challenging they would be, I probably never would have done them. But I'm so grateful I did. But I will say, you know, if I could deliver the information to my 21-year-old self that I would be doing what I'm doing now, she would be so excited.
Right.
It's like exactly what, it's exactly what she didn't even know she wanted yet.
Thank you for being a model for us of listening
Yeah.
deeply and trusting yourself and restoring right relationship over and over again with yourself and the ecosystems that you're a part of. Yeah, really appreciate you.
Yeah. Thank you for having me and for asking these questions. It's certainly not a linear journey, and I learn the most potent, valuable lessons from fucking up. So, permission for that too.
Yes,
It's just part of it.
it is part of it. Permission to fail brilliantly, folks. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, Tasha, and thank you, listeners.